are not very different from that of individuals. It all hinges on the future of cash flow, volatile or stable. If a borrower's future cash flow is subject to a lot of risk, equity is the appropriate source of funding.
Prostate exams are outdated, and here's why nobody talks about it. Do this tonight before...
In order to boost their return on investment, equity owners have an incentive to use debt or leverage to buy assets that will be used to produce revenue and profit. If the return on these assets is greater than the cost of debt, the benefit accrues to the owners of the company. While we expect owners to be prudent and not incur more debt than they can afford, sometimes they are overly aggressive or just do not know how much debt can be safely incurred. It is the job of the credit analyst to answer this question: what is the debt capacity of a company? Next, we'll discuss capital structure and its impact on return on equity, or ROE. Common equity is a fundamental part of a company's capital structure. It is the funds that belong to the owners. It has no date at which it must be returned, also known as maturity, and no legal obligation to take dividends. It is distributed when a company is formed and builds as a company generates and retains profits. The goal of the owners of equity is to generate a good return on their investment, also known as return on equity or ROE. If a company does not produce an ROE that is greater than its cost of capital, then it is destroying value for the owners of its equity. They'd be better off taking their money and investing it elsewhere. Of course, this is not a short-term decision, and most equity owners look to the future, estimate and forecast future returns, and try to judge the present value of the future returns, using their cost of capital as the discount rate. Hopefully, it's positive. Obviously, this is highly subject to the evaluation of risk associated with the forecast of future returns. If it's not positive, the investor should take their money and invest it elsewhere where they can get a positive, risk-adjusted return on capital. Return on equity is a function of three variables: profit margin, asset turnover, and leverage. This is a simple analytic model that can explain the basic business model of any company. ROE is produced by some combination of these three variables: high margins, high asset turnover, high leverage, or some combination of all three. Since high leverage is only sustainable in companies that are very stable with predictable revenue, most companies have to focus on profit margins and asset turnover to produce an adequate ROE. In the case of XYZ company that we discussed earlier, the equity is 435. If the owners expect a return on their capital of 10% after tax, which is a relatively modest expectation, the company must be able to figure out how to generate 43.5% after tax from a balance sheet with total assets of $495. Assuming a tax rate of 35%, this is pre-tax profit of about 67. How does a company produce 67 of pre-tax operating profit with a balance sheet of 495? It has to figure out how to generate enough revenue from its assets at a sufficient profit margin and with a degree of leverage that doesn't risk putting itself into bankruptcy. Using the XYZ company balance sheet, we can look at a few ways to produce the desired return on equity of 10%. As we can see, a 10% return on 435 of equity is 43.5. Return on equity equals net profit divided by average equity. In this case, ROE equals 43.5 divided by 435, or 10%. Leverage is the ratio of total assets.
other countries probably download this and use it against us. It reads well, though. That sounds good.
If you live in a Maryland zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen carefully. I was an insurance agent for 30 years, and what I'm about to tell you could save you up to 80% on your auto insurance.
I wish with the Trump administration they would focus on what needs to be done better. It's always praise and acknowledging what's been done well, which is good. You want more of that than highlighting anything else, but I still think it would be healthy to talk about the things and items and areas that could use some work. When was this signed? 1823. Might need to update it a little bit. It's also funny, they're talking about wanting to uphold that, but they'll go take the leader of Venezuela.
I don't know who could have issued the stand down order. Marco Rubio was asked in a pretty, let's say, flawed interview with Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation about why the U.S. didn't take out Padrino Lopez, the defense minister, or take out Diosdado Cabello, who represents another power center, which is centered heavily in the military and the militant forces that would defend the government in the street. And Rubio said, you can't just go in and take out 5 people at once. It was hard enough to take out, to kidnap one, or he didn't say kidnap, but to capture one. And I don't totally accept that explanation, although it would have raised the stakes and the risk factor for U.S. troops. But you have to consider that if you start to collapse every power center within the Chavista political apparatus, that you have a complete power vacuum that can't be filled with anything, and it destabilizes the entire country. Diosdado Cabello, again, he's one of the most important figures within the pantheon of the PSUV, and he was out on the street after Maduro's abduction with military figures behind him declaring resistance to this invasion and wearing on his vest, I think, an increasingly important symbol, which is the flag of the Second Republic of Venezuela, essentially the flag of Simon Bolivar, who ousted the Spanish colonists from South America and forged a vision of Gran Colombia, regional integration against imperial control. And so Diosdado Cabello is signaling something there. And so again, I don't think this is over. There may have been a deal, but Delcy Rodriguez on her own, she doesn't.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair
for them to be taken out next, but that would leave a massive power vacuum, and it would quickly become a catastrophe for Marco Rubio, especially, who sees himself as the sort of viceroy of Venezuela.
How much support does Delcy, the former vice president, now the interim president, how much support does she have in Venezuela? And secondary is, would love to get your thoughts on the theory that she might have been the person in Maduro's inner circle that was giving the CIA and the U.S. intelligence information on his whereabouts and potentially, as you said, might have, you didn't say that, but some are saying she might have been even the person that played a role in the alleged or potential stand down order that was given. So essentially, could she have been the U.S. mole?
Okay, I didn't say that or speculate.
You didn't, no.
That, just to be clear, and I think we have to have
A person in Maduro's inner circle that was giving the CIA and the U.S. intelligence information on his whereabouts and potentially, as you said, might have. You didn't say that, but some are saying she might have been even the person that played a role in the alleged or potential stand down. Where it's on how much support does Delcy, the former vice president, now the interim president, how much support does she have in Venezuela? And secondary is, would love to get your thoughts on the theory that she might have been the person in Maduro's inner circle that was giving the CIA and the U.S. intelligence information on his whereabouts and potentially, as you said, might have. You didn't say that, but some are saying she might have been even the person that played a role in the alleged potential stand down order that was given. So essentially, could she have been the U.S. mole?
Then we'll see what happens.
Okay, I didn't say that or speculate.
You didn't, no.
That, just to be clear, and I think we have to have. She has to be asked those questions by interviewers. I interviewed her, just to go to your first question, in 2021. So it was the midst of COVID, the COVID event, and she had taken control of administering the Venezuelan state response to COVID, which enabled her to be on TV every day addressing the nation in the same way that maybe Andrew Cuomo addressed New Yorkers or Anthony Fauci. And so in some ways she superseded Maduro because she was responding to the crisis every day with directions. She was the vice president, but she'd also taken control of other ministries and was presiding over Venezuela's economic revival after years and years of sanctions, to the great chagrin of the U.S. And this is something that was acknowledged in the New York Times today in a profile of Delcy. She stabilized the economy, and the economy has been growing at a fairly rapid rate over the past 4 years. I think they might have reached 8% growth last year, which is something that the United States didn't want to see.
Can you elaborate on this? Because obviously, one thing we both agree on is that we both don't think regime changes are a good idea. Historically, they really haven't worked. But I think one area we differ on is the state of Venezuela under Maduro and even Chavez. And we looked at the statistics, the economy, and please do disagree with me with this as well if you feel free to do so. But from the statistics that I have, according to various sources, the economy shrunk by 80% between 2013 and 2022. Living standards by about 74%. Oil production dropped by about 80% since the peak in the 1990s. It's about a fifth now. 95% of the population lives in poverty, massive inequality, and a big chunk of the population left the country since Maduro took over. And now, post-2024 elections, 43%, according to a few polls, considered leaving due to repression. Now, the reason this is the case, the situations like this, some people blame U.S. sanctions, others blame the mismanagement by Maduro. First, do you agree that the economy is doing that badly? Second, what do you blame for that? And third, could that change under the vice president or someone else taking the leadership, taking Maduro's position?
Well, some of the statistics you cited were flawed, but I agree generally with what you're saying about just from a statistical point of view. Delcy Rodriguez had as I was saying, had presided over an economic revival in Venezuela, which threatened U.S. hegemony, and China was central to this economic revival. If you look at another statistic, I think it would be helpful. Exports of barrels of oil in Venezuelan barrels of oil per day. And it was going up from a low point, and I'll get into the question of why. It was going up from a low point of like 400,000 to over 1 million, thanks to China, which was becoming the main export center for Venezuela, which is why Trump imposed a quarantine. And China was buying like 75% of Venezuela's oil, which was leading to growth. Venezuela was able to begin to repair its aging and broken oil infrastructure with the help of China, Russia, and also Iran was providing them with a lot of help, which is why you hear this hysteria about Iran forming this base on the American continent, on the South American continent through Venezuela. It was because Venezuela had normal relations with Iran and treated it like a normal country instead of a terrorist country. Now, going back to the statistics you cited, 2012 was a pivotal year. It's when Secretary of State John Kerry cut a deal with Saudi Arabia to go back and check out headlines around this time. Cut a deal with Saudi Arabia's royal family to increase oil production at Aramco massively in order to flood the market, which would thereby weaken Venezuela's main source, its main economic engine. And in exchange, Kerry promised support for the so-called moderate rebels in Syria to the Saudi royal family, and to basically allow Prince Bandar to set up all these proxies like Jaish al-Islam. It was a really dirty deal. It harmed Venezuela, and around the same time, Hugo Chavez died under circumstances some consider suspicious. Nicolas Maduro came in within 1 month, after an election held in 1 month, and he was the legitimate, uncontested winner of that election. And Venezuela then experienced 2 years of riots, just 2 years straight of Guarimba riots, overseen by US-trained, US-funded renter riots and their leadership, who were completely funded by USAID and CIA cutouts like the National Endowment for Democracy. We're talking about Leopoldo Lopez, Juan Guaido, these characters, Carlos Vecchio. This set back Venezuela's economy massively, and then Obama began to sanction Venezuela's oil sector and individually sanction Venezuelan business leaders and Venezuelan political leaders in 2015, leading us to 2017 with Trump coming in and enacting a campaign of maximum pressure, similar to what he did to Iran. Then you have the regime change attempts under Juan Guaido, when Venezuela's largest foreign asset in Citgo was literally stolen by the US regime, which also presided over the theft of $20 billion in gold reserves held in the Bank of England. They just took the gold. So Venezuela is just being subjected to international piracy by the most powerful empire in human history. Naturally, its economy is going to experience a massive decline. And now you see these comments from groups of Venezuelans in South Florida, the base of the regime change lobby, who are saying, we're so happy, we're going to go back maybe because Venezuela's free, but we're not so sure, because the U.S. hasn't relieved Venezuela of the economic quarantine, the economic blockade, because Marco Rubio wants to exploit it in order to destroy Cuba as well. But the last waves of Venezuelan migration to the U.S. and the poverty of Venezuela has been directly caused by the unilateral sanctions, or what we could call financial terrorism, imposed on Venezuela by the U.S. regime, which is doing the same thing to Iran, which caused legitimate protests in Iran's bazaars over inflation directly caused by sanctions. And they're using those protests as a vehicle for more renter riots, which U.S. and Israeli leadership has not even attempted to conceal, in which U.S. and Israeli leadership has not attempted to conceal their exploitation and desire for Mossad to increase the violence. So that's what Venezuela's been facing, and I don't think there's any way of denying that the US played a role, or that Venezuela was beginning to slowly extricate itself from the financial terrorism which posed a real threat to US empire. What is at the base of US empire? What is the underpinning, the bedrock of it? It is the dominance of the dollar. And once a country manages to get out of sanctions, the dollar begins to decline.
How much blame do you put on Maduro himself and his lack of qualifications as a former bus driver appointed by Hugo Chavez? Do you think he is he's capable of taking Venezuela back to its former glory, the pre-Hugo Chavez glory as one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America? Or do you think if his political party remains in power, the Chavismo movement remains in power, could a different leader within that movement do a better job in rebuilding not only the economy, but the entire institutional system that allows the country to function, but also cooperate with the US as other Latin American countries have done? Could that be an outcome? Because we're not seeing a regime change here. As you said, you were very critical in our last interview that Maria Machado should not, or the gentleman she's supporting, I've got his name, should not be the leader of Venezuela if Maduro's replaced. And that's the case. That seems to be happening. Trump distanced himself from her. So if this is not a regime change, if the regime is still in power, could a different leader within that regime do a better job than Maduro?
Well, it was never a question of qualifications. And now there's this very specious story being introduced that Trump really decided to invade Caracas and abduct Maduro because he didn't like Maduro's dancing. That's the same Donald Trump who does the Trump dance every time he hears YMCA. And it became a national sensation. I don't know, maybe he didn't want Maduro to one-up him because he was like a slightly better dancer, was doing some salsa moves, but it was never a question of competence. There has been corruption under the Bolivarian Republic launched by Hugo Chavez because Venezuela is a petrostate. You've had corrupt figures within the realm of Chavez and PDVSA, the state oil company, who stole billions of dollars. And when the Venezuelan state attempted to prosecute them, they fled to Florida and found protection from the U.S. in exchange for, squealing on Maduro. Prior to that, Venezuela was extremely corrupt, and it was under IMF management, and you had bread riots in the street. Maduro, it was the foreign minister under Hugo Chavez. He's someone that I've interviewed and I've engaged with on several occasions, who considers himself a student of Simón Bolívar, who's very well read, who watch his speeches, his press conferences, including engaging with the international media, and I've been to several of them, and he speaks in an articulate way, blending history, politics, and his own kind of sense of humor and sardonic wit for 2 hours at a time, 3 hours at a time. He's not a stupid guy. They call him a bus driver. He was the leader of the bus drivers union, who comes from a working class barrio in Caracas and organized masses of people who became an important power base for PSUV, which led him into Hugo Chavez's administration. Hugo Chavez before him had 2 master's degrees, was born in extreme poverty in the Venezuelan Llano, the plains, and worked himself up through the Venezuelan military and gathered his own credibility through the ranks of the military. So the idea that these are just dumb guys leading their nation to ruin is ridiculous, especially when you look at the figure of Donald Trump, someone who dodged the draft in Vietnam, was born with a silver foot in his mouth, can barely make it through press conferences without blurting out impolitic comments, and is increasingly incoherent while Americans are facing an unprecedented debt crisis. I don't even personally blame Trump for the economic crisis. I blame the economic system that we're in, which is something Venezuela has been prisoner to. So the question is, can Delcy Rodriguez, through her sheer brilliance, get Venezuela out of this and unite one of the most polarized countries on the planet? Well, she's a very smart woman herself, whether you disagree with her or not. She's clever. She's very good at working with the media, but that's just not going to be enough, because Venezuela is, like every other country in the Western Hemisphere right now, and territory, including Greenland, in the crosshairs of the most powerful empire in human history. And so the message that the Trump administration and Trump world, this kind of business mob that Trump runs, is sending is, if you want to actually have a sovereign country within our realm, and you actually want to offer an economic alternative to our system of neoliberal capitalism, you have to have the guns to resist us, or we will crush you. And that's really what's going to decide this at the end of the day, not one singular personality and their sheer brilliance.
So I understand you're critical of the intervention that we're seeing in Venezuela and just foreign intervention in general by the US. What do you think they did right? Obviously, militarily, it was a success. Would you give them credit for not considering, because I know you were critical, as I said earlier, of Maria Machado, not considering having Maria Machado come in and take power, and trying to work with the existing regime? Also, what do you make of the threats that came in? Not sure if you saw the updates just before we did our interview, the threats on the former Vice President Rodriguez about Trump. I think Trump said that if she doesn't do what the US wants, something worse than Maduro could happen to her, which is indicating that maybe what could be worse than being arrested and taken to jail, maybe assassinated. What do you make of these threats and the way they're approaching this?
To the first question, what has been done right by Rubio is that Venezuela has not been destabilized. That would have been...
That was a big concern of yours when we spoke, yeah.
And it still could be. Iran was not destabilized by the U.S. attack, which appeared to be, I wouldn't say symbolic, but it was a means to close out the conflict and actually salvage Israel, which was suffering more than I think the U.S. expected under Iranian ballistic missile attacks. So they've closed one chapter, and Venezuela's streets remain pretty calm at this point. Speaking to a friend who's there now a few hours ago, there's a lot of panic buying, but that's it for now. So they've managed to avoid that for now, but Donald Trump, as you said, is threatening Delcy Rodriguez essentially with her life. I mean, that's the message they're sending, is we are just this global mafia and we'll take you out. We will just take you out if you defy us. Trump, in his press conference announcing the abduction of Nicolas Maduro, declared that Delcy Rodriguez will do whatever we want. That was wishful thinking. And what do they want? Trump has made a lot of promises to business cronies that they will be able to profit from Venezuela's wealth, and they've supported Donald Trump as a result. I was just looking at photos from a recent event held by the right-wing outlet Breitbart in Washington, and J.D. Vance was the keynote speaker, and then he was mingling afterwards with figures from a group called Tower Strategies, which is headed by the former CIA station chief or one of their consultants is the former CIA station chief in Venezuela, and they're basically trying to recruit as clients U.S. corporations that want to plunder Venezuela, and J.D. Vance was right there mingling with them. You have, I question why Elon Musk got so interested in Venezuela when Maria Corina Machado and then Edmundo Gonzalez were running for election in 2024, but I know that he is interested in access to lithium and minerals, and has said in response to a Twitter commenter, we'll coup whoever we want in Bolivia, which has the world's largest lithium reserves, and now he's pumping up what just took place and algorithmically juicing every tweet, including fake AI videos of people celebrating what took place in Venezuela. So Trump owes a lot to his donors. He has a lot to gain personally through his family and the various business entities they've set up, like World Liberty Financial through his sons and Steve Witkoff's sons. Venezuela also has crude oil, which the U.S. needs, and from a strategic point of view. And I think Delcy Rodriguez was right to say this when she responded to the introduction of Maduro, that this assault on Venezuela has Zionist characteristics. Now you see major Zionist billionaires like Bill Ackman, or Netanyahu himself, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, declaring that this was a giant victory and that it means Iran is next. If the U.S. can somehow, some way, take control of Venezuela's crude oil and begin refining it again in Louisiana and Texas, then it will weaken Iran. I mean, this is how the theory goes. I'm not speaking for myself. It will weaken Iran's ability to close off the Strait of Hormuz, because the U.S. will not be as dependent on oil delivered through that shipping lane. So I can see so many reasons why Trump is interested here, but the first one goes to the heart of his administration and why what he wants to do, which is to make lots of money.
Another theory is it gives a lot more control for the U.S. of the global oil market. China is the biggest exporter of Venezuelan oil. Russia obviously depends on, I wouldn't say high oil prices, but at least oil prices above $60, $70. So with the U.S. having control of Venezuelan oil, the largest known reserves, larger than Saudi, I think about 17% of global known reserves, and significant capacity to export more than they are right now. As I said earlier, they're producing about a fifth of what they were many years ago. So significant capacity there. So that gives the U.S. a lot more leverage against China if they decide to take action on Taiwan. China imports all their oil, I think it's about 80%, and it gives them leverage over Russia in those negotiations. Now, it does take them time to up the production capacity of Venezuela, a lot of money and time, but that's one of the theories floating around. And I'd love to get your comments on this theory, but more importantly, why get rid of Maduro? Why capture Maduro if you seem to be okay with his regime remaining in power, which is what you said earlier in the interview, you predicted as well? Why not keep Maduro? What's the benefit? Is it just to get that military win, that political win? Because one mistake, one helicopter shot down could be, as you said, a massive political liability for Trump. So why take that risk that could have gone horribly wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think I answered, or tried to answer that question, which is that they think that they can get to a more pliable figure and begin to split the
pliable how?
They think. This is what Marco Rubio is saying through his proxies and may eventually say openly at some point. And it's what Donald Trump is saying. They think that Delcy Rodriguez can be someone they can work with more directly, and that Maduro was resisting whatever deal they wanted, which was obviously going to be extremely onerous and was going to force Venezuela to give up its control over its own oil through the PDVSA managerial structure that was established under Chavez. So that's their thinking, and I see it from Marco Rubio's proxies in social media. Like that's what they think is going to happen.
Do you think there is a potentially a long-term plan to have Maria Machado or Edmundo Gonzalez to take power in Venezuela? Because right now, at least in the short term, no indicator of any such plans. But Machado did say, today we are prepared to assert our mandate and seize power. So she seemed very confident when this took place that she would return, or she would gain power, not return to power. But you're saying that's completely off the tables, even long term.
I don't want to make some prediction and then get embarrassed down the road when someone digs up a clip of me saying it. So I don't want to even risk being wrong if I'm 99% sure. But here's what I think is going on based on a fairly cursory reading of the situation is that the U.S. that the Trump-Rubio administration is seeking to stabilize the situation under PSUV,
Maduro's political party.
possibly being delusional, and then set the stage for an election at some point when they think they can develop if they think they can develop an alternative power structure or institution to the one set up in the Bolivarian Republic, then fine, and they would groom a candidate either from within who had come out of PSUV, who was willing to do the U.S.'s bidding, or bring back Maria Corina Machado, since she does have her own constituency and power base, in the eastern parts of Caracas and in, some other more middle-class parts of the country. They would then do so, but Marco Rubio has said we can't talk about elections now. Delcy Rodriguez is delaying elections herself by continuing to recognize, this is again a theory, continuing to recognize Nicolas Maduro. That will at least hold off elections for 4 months, because according to the Venezuelan constitution, in a succession of power, you have to hold, in an unexpected succession of power, you have to hold elections within 1 month, and that would destabilize Venezuela, and there's no clear candidate. Maria Corina chose to leave to take her Nobel Prize. She has no support within any powerful institution in Venezuela today under the Bolivarian Revolution. And that is the real reason why she cannot come back, and why Trump just probably ended her career with what he said yesterday.
And I think it's important what you just said. You cannot, at least in the current system, you cannot have power in Venezuela without the support of the military. Based on the developments so far, you said one of the good things is that there's no instability, at least not yet in Venezuela. What are the risks of things changing? As we saw in Iran, people were talking about a regime change and people to go on the streets when Israel was striking Iran, but everyone rallied around the flag instead. But what happened months afterwards, especially with the ongoing economic pressure, as people took to the streets? Could we see the same in Venezuela? Could that maybe be the strategy to remove Maduro, start to impose economic pressure? And first, could that be a strategy? And second, what are the risks from what you're seeing right now that we could see instability, even risks of a worst-case scenario, civil war in the country?
I don't see protests. That was something that was already tried during the Guarimbas, and they were very violent protests that killed scores of Venezuelan citizens, people on both sides, but people, including Chavistas, as well as innocent people who were just perceived as Chavistas. I mean, the opposition has been extremely violent, and that was kind of crushed through the issuance or invocation of the Constituent Assembly by Maduro. That's a past era. Civil war, yes, civil war is very possible. There are competing power factions in Venezuela. The Venezuelans within Chavismo are extremely upset about what happened. There is more national unity than in the past because of the violence and the sheer gangsterism of the U.S. Many Venezuelans who might not have supported Maduro are also nationalists, and they're offended by what's taking place. So there could be resistance building, and if a leader is imposed on Venezuelans who wants to just allow the U.S. business class to plunder the country, there could be resistance to that. I mean, it's all pretty obvious. And another point about the military and why it's so unacceptable to the U.S. that a figure like Maduro or Diosdado Cabello have the support and backing of the military, and that they can't just dislodge them through a phony color revolution as they used to be able to do in the post-Soviet satellite states, is because the U.S. insists on being able to train and control all militaries across Latin America, and then to turn them on their people if the people protest IMF austerity packages. That's why they have the School of the Americas, which is now operating under a new title at Fort Benning in Georgia. And who was trained by the School of the Americas? One figure I can name was Manuel Noriega, who was paid something like $160,000 a month when he was a CIA asset throughout the 1970s. And he was also presiding over the trafficking of drugs to the United States as well as weapons to U.S. proxies. And the trafficking of drugs was being done directly under the watch of the CIA in order to raise money for black operations against supposed socialist and nationalist forces like the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. And Noriega, as soon as he started to bristle at this level of U.S. control, or held a conference in Panama against continued U.S. militarization in Central America, well, they took him out under a anti-drug pretext, which was so ironic given that George H.W. Bush, who presided over that invasion, was the CIA director for all those years when Manuel Noriega was allowing drugs to proceed across Panamanian territory directly under the nose of the CIA. The Government Accountability Office of the United States government found that 2 years after Noriega was removed, the U.S. puppet government of Endara had actually increased the level of drug trafficking to the U.S., and Panama had become a haven for money laundering, in which the cartels were concealing all of their profits through shell corporations. That was really like what built Panama City. So this is all history that needs to be considered in light of what's taking place now. And it should inform our reading of the superseding indictment against Nicolas Maduro, who is being paraded around like some Roman trophy by the Trump administration and the DEA through New York. When he goes on trial, we should read this indictment closely, because it is basically a 25-page rant consisting of very sloppy claims, and it's another phony anti-drug pretext for a straightforward imperial plunder and robbery of Venezuela's resources, which it should control. So as this process continues to play out, if anyone wants to continue to pay attention, you're going to get a great education in how gangsterism works, and Venezuelans, I think, will close ranks in order to preserve what's left of their nation, if Donald Trump really wants to go ahead with this plan to essentially own the country.
The comparisons you made to Manuel Noriega, the former leader of Panama, who's also initially a CIA asset, but also deposed by the U.S. military in 1990, I think it was, 89, 90. It was a 2-week operation, more bloody than the one we saw on January 3rd, obviously. A few U.S. casualties, I can't remember how many it was, and a lot more casualties on the Panama side. And it was also on January 3rd, a few decades ago. What comparisons would you make to that regime change we saw in Panama? And also, you've talked about the charges against Maduro. What type of sentencing do you think he'll receive? Where do you think he'll be held?
Well, he's being held in New York, and he's going to be tried in the Southern District of New York, so New York City. And this is the same court where former Honduran president and convicted narco-trafficker Juan Orlando Hernandez was prosecuted and convicted. And he was granted clemency by Trump after a lobbying campaign by funded by Trump cronies who wanted to make money under a new Honduran government on the island of Roatan. I'm talking about Mark Andreessen, and I think Peter Thiel might have been another figure, and you saw Roger Stone lobbying for Juan Orlando Hernandez's clemency. Juan Orlando Hernandez claimed, and Donald Trump repeated this claim in some form in his press conference yesterday, that he was the victim of lawfare, that he was persecuted, and Juan Orlando Hernandez specifically said that I was prosecuted on the basis of one drug dealer. The problem is, his indictment, if you read it, was much more detailed than Maduro's. It contained photographic evidence, including cocaine bags that were engraved with the initials of his brother, Tony Hernandez, who's still in a federal prison. There was video of an informant within the Los Cachiros cartel showing Juan Orlando Hernandez on camera, confessing and boasting about drug trafficking and drug shipments to the United States. There's physical evidence of it. There were also many murders from friendly elements. He stacked the national police with cartel leaders. But let's go back to that allegation about one man. Well, Maduro's indictment is largely based on allegations by one man, Pollo Carvajal, who is a high-level security honcho under Chavez, who did not support Maduro, and then basically sang like a bird and said whatever he thought the U.S. authorities would have wanted when he fell into their hands and faced prosecution, thinking maybe if I make myself a valuable asset, I can avoid a long prison term. The beginning of the indictment starts out with a factual error. It reads, for over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. I think they meant export, and that really hints at how sloppy the indictment is. Tons of cocaine, they don't cite how many tons, but later on in the indictment, the prosecutor at the time, Emile Beauvais, concedes unintentionally that Venezuela was actually only exporting less than 10% of cocaine that went to the United States. And then there's a ton of slop in the indictment about activities allegedly carried out by Maduro's family inside Venezuela or allegedly in Mexico outside the jurisdiction of the United States. So I think he has a pretty strong defense. There are protests outside the prison where he's being held, a large protest. And this is something you wouldn't see for someone who had been a wide...
This is the quickest way to go from AI beginner to AI fluent in 2026. Watch this.
So this is how I became the most...
It's different from the Noriega situation as well, in that the U.S. did have boots on the ground in Panama. It destroyed an entire neighborhood in Panama City. There was much more carnage, but we're now learning that, at least 80 people were killed, and Trump has said that, he's not hostile to the idea of boots on the ground.
The last thing I want to get your thoughts on, and you mentioned it earlier in the interview, is the Chinese envoy that was in Caracas during the strikes, and they met Maduro hours beforehand. What does that say about China's involvement or lack thereof in this entire operation? And some are looking at the timing of this as potential, because China said, and they don't usually say this, they were shocked by the attack, they don't usually use words like that. It's some type of message that Trump was sending to China, essentially to keep your hands out of our hemisphere.
It was a message to China, as was the attempted theft of the Bella 1 tanker, which actually got away but was carrying Chinese oil and was not even sanctioned, as far as I know. This is not, so it's not just about Venezuela. It's a message to the entire Latin American left. It's a message to Russia. It's a message to China. It's a message to Iran. Trump is basically saying he can assassinate or abduct any leader he wants if he doesn't get what he wants in a deal. Trump, however, did say yesterday that Venezuela can export oil to China, which suggests there might have been some negotiation that took place either beforehand or immediately afterwards, because he did not want to infuriate China and make it so clear that he was seeking to impose a de facto embargo on China as well, which is importing so much oil from Venezuela. This is, it opens the door for retaliation in different geographic poles of the world by Russia, which it looks like has faced drone attacks in Moscow and possible attempts at assassinating its president, Vladimir Putin, from Ukraine, that Russia could escalate against Vladimir Zelensky.
Do you believe those claims by Russia that his residence was targeted?
I would say I need to look more closely at that, but these are claims they're making, which set the stage for retaliation against Zelensky and what could what could Ukraine say? Zelensky endorsed what Donald Trump did to Maduro. So he's putting a target on his own back. Taiwan, which is China, which is Chinese territory, I would say is more vulnerable now after what Donald Trump did. Greenland, Stephen Miller's wife just tweeted a map of Greenland with a U.S. flag imposed over it. Donald Trump has said, well, we need Greenland not only because of minerals, but because of national security. There are Russian and Chinese ships trafficking throughout Greenland, and he's referring to control of the Arctic, which is a priority of the Pentagon. What can the Europeans do when they have just all bowed down and licked Donald Trump's boots? The Greek prime minister, who's a NATO tool, supported it. Keir Starmer refuses to condemn it. Emmanuel Macron, the billionaire banker in France, has bowed down before Trump and supported it. Won't even use the term international law. Kaja Kallas, who heads the foreign office of the EU, has refused to condemn it. So they're setting the stage for Trump taking Greenland because there'll be nothing they can say about it now.
What do you think the world would do if Russia did the same thing? He said Zelensky put a tiger on his back. So if Russia goes ahead and kidnaps Zelensky, the same way Maduro was kidnapped, and shows them off, trials them like the US is doing so, having the photo ops that the US has done, how do you think the world would react to that?
Well, it would be similar to how the world reacted to Russia invading Ukraine after the U.S. attempted to NATOize Ukraine. And when we talk about the world, I think we should talk about the collective West, which has bowed before Trump, even as they exude contempt for him and his personality and his kind of and the conservative constituency that he controls. The 50 or 55 or so countries comprising the collective West that vote together as a bloc behind the U.S. and refuse to oppose in any meaningful way Israel's genocide in Gaza and the Holocaust of children that occurred there. They will react with righteous indignation to anything that Russia does and thunder condemnations about Putin. I saw a ridiculous headline in some legacy publication today that what Trump just did in Venezuela represents the Putinization of U.S. policy. No, this is classic U.S. gunboat diplomacy. It's how the U.S. has treated Latin America throughout its entire existence, going back to the U.S.-Mexico War. But now, at this point, after what took place in Venezuela and after the whole 2-year nightmare of witnessing the Gaza genocide, which was supported in every way possible by the collective West, their protests and their condemnations will ring hollow. And going back to your last question, we should ask if there is some larger negotiation taking place between the U.S., Russia, and China to formalize the great power competition in which great powers are given more latitude to operate with impunity within their poles of geographic power, within their strategic realms. And Marco Rubio made some comments that I thought were pretty stunning last year, but which make a little bit more sense now when he actually said we are living in a multipolar world. It's not how I would envision a multipolar world taking place, but I can see it being a Rubio-centric interpretation of what one means.
Max, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mario.
Pretty much. Yeah. What's they doing? Time Lords. This guy's gonna be spewing about Bitcoin and shit.
The Art of War is one of the greatest books ever written. The Art of War. Everyone should have a copy of The Art of War. And the reason I bring that up is know thyself, okay? Like, one of the great quotes from this book, many people misquote, is know thy enemy. And you should know your enemy, okay? But you also should know yourself. You must know, I must know myself first. Because oftentimes I am the enemy. If I don't know myself, I most certainly can be my own worst enemy. Once I know myself, and then I also can understand the enemy, man, I'm in an awesome shape. I could write 4 short novels on the power of the Art of War. And I was in a conflict that's still not ended, really. But I am so far above this conflict at this point, and if the person's listening, it's in such power over this position now that I could literally write a book and a summary for the other person who's been, attempting to drag me down. Even my lawyers are like, Jesus, dude, you're and always in total control. Well, it's because I know the other person extremely well. I know their game plan and what their tools and their only tools are. And I allow them to use it. I don't overwork my own. So it has been unbelievable. I can't even write about it because it's such a stupid outcome. And I'll probably get sued, but Robert Flutie's in the room. Thank you, Robert. I think I owe you a phone call, Robert, but I can't remember what it was about. I get all these texts. Lori Spearin, take zinc and oil of oregano. Okay, thank you. And you guys, I'll take some love and some prayer. Prayer from me, by the way. I'm going to write the word prayer down. Prayer, for me, is about energy. It's about light. Okay, it's about... I sent a note to somebody the other day, and somebody called me a racist. I said, hey, dude, I am sending... I think it was the guy in Australia. I really like this guy, the big guy that had a stroke. What's his name, man? He very politically switched on. Big name, he got arrested in Australia. Anyway, I like his warrior attitude, man. Anyway, I said, hey, man, I'm sending you pure white light. And somebody said something about the whiteness. I'm like, no, dude, I'm sending you pure energy, okay? Just good, positive, pure energy. So anybody wants to send me energy, I believe, right or wrong, I believe that if 1,000 people sent me congruent, focused, high energy from their beingness, hey, look, we need to protect this cat, I would be so well protected by the ripples of energy you send me. I believe in this stuff, man. This is work for me, and there is no way that I got to where I am at the age of 40, probably 30. There's no way that I got to where I was at 30 years old through anything other than the magic of reinforcing thought and energy into one stream, just like I was digging a ditch, and now I have this ditch that's been dug. It didn't always look pretty digging the ditch, but I have a life today that I'm actually shocked at what's happening to me. And that's one of the reasons I keep doing this. And I may be very vulnerable, and I may seem weak. Somebody made a joke last night. I don't know if it was intended negatively or funny or positively, but hey, I'll introduce you to Gary, psychologist. Like, maybe people think I need help or something. Hey, I do need help, man. Okay, In fact, I think the more powerful people are, and if you know who I'm talking about, or if you're listening to this, I think the more powerful you are, the more you have to look within, because you're more complicated. I am really a complicated person. Maybe I think I'm complicated. Maybe my ego wants me to be complicated, but I am, like, it's hard sometimes to live in this space. So, where am I headed? Where I'm headed is, like, I will take all of your positive energy, okay? Pure flow of energy. There most certainly are people that do not want me doing this, okay? They bang on me, they say negative things. Sometimes it affects me, sometimes it doesn't. I shouldn't let it affect me. I really should be in a space where I just point people out and go, hey, look at this guy that did not have good parenting. And if I do that, it's not because I hate you. It's because you might have made a mistake, and I'm just going to use you as an example for other people, without trying to shame you or make you guilty. But and look, I know there's people in the room here. I may say things that you don't like, but in that maybe I'm one of the older people here. There are things that I have had to hear in my life from strong men and women. I may have not liked it. I may have said, fuck off. I may have walked out of the room, stormed out like a little baby, but I needed to hear these messages. Okay? For instance, one message that I have never forgotten, and I'd like all of you to write this down. I'd like you to get your pencil out and commit that you're going to write this down, whether you like it or not. But I was sitting in a room while everybody's getting their pencil and paper. I would really beg you to do so. XRP Mullet Head says, thanks for the space. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Good morning. I am A1. A1. I am one of one, dude. I love this. One of one. If we just keep reminding ourselves, you're going to have to remind yourself over and over and over and over again, because you are inundated, absolutely slaughtered with the concept that you are one of many, that you are one of something you need to compare to. And I am going to tell you that comparing, as soon as you start comparing, there is rip my garden, or at least encourage me to rip the garden. You must. My time has some value. Another 5 miles in the snow opens me up to wrecks and all kinds of stuff. Look, I don't get that, okay? I don't know why anyone would misconstrue time, adventure, experiences with saving 5 cents a gallon. Like, if 5 cents a gallon is your problem, you got big problems, man. Okay? You got big problems. So the point I'm trying to make is time, love, interaction, experiences. A man challenged me once when I was thinking about spending a lot of money on something. And he looked at me. He wasn't selling me. I mean, he was just asking me a question. He said, dude, have you ever paid? I'd ask you guys to write this down, actually. Have you ever paid too much for a great experience? Have I ever paid too much for a great adventure? I am on an adventure right now. I have no idea where I'm going. I'm in the jungle of my mind, me. I am the soul, I believe. I don't think I have a soul. I am the soul. And I look at this as a great adventure. I cannot answer the question, okay? I have never paid too much for a great adventure, ever. $1 million, $600,000, $60,000, 24 hours with a stranger that I didn't know that changed my life. And I was judged harshly about hanging out, having a short-term relationship with some of these people helped me so much it was unbelievable. Okay, I still remember these people. They came in and out of my life magically, and And it was a great adventure, okay? Did I take some risks to have that adventure? Yes, I did. Most everything that's ever come to me that's been good, I have taken massive risks, and this is one of them. The cool thing about what I'm doing here is I know, if I don't overthink this, I know this little adventure I'm on with the self-discovery thing. I don't know where it's going, but I know it's going to go somewhere big, somewhere really, really important for me. Not maybe the way I would shape it, but most certainly, look, I just have a lot of faith. And this is why I get irritated with the religious, the nomenclature, the hardcore religion. Oh, you need to pray more. No, dude, I do not need to pray more. I have been given my instructions. Show up, do the right thing, use the tools I have been given. I have been given some gifts. Those gifts need to be sharpened, refined, improved upon. And I don't need to worry about the things I'm not great at. I just don't need to do them. I need to do what I am really, really good at and not get distracted. Kelly Kellum, I think you know what I'm talking about getting distracted. It's so easy. By the way, the more able you are, the easier it is to get distracted. Okay? So, discipline is the key to freedom. Like it or not, discipline is the key to freedom. I'm going to pause there because I think it's such a big thing. And I'm going to hold you responsible. I want you to just look at your diary from the last 2 weeks in December. The last 2 or 3 weeks in December, most everyone has been.
Tonight, we're going back to Venezuela. I initially wanted to stay away from this, the Venezuela thing. We did a stream. It was called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Venezuela. Venezuela is one of these weird countries where I stay out of it. There are so many blob ops in Venezuela. Venezuela is like completely bipartisan blob ops. Like one of the reasons we're having a difficult time trying to get the National Endowment for Democracy shut down is because they're so active in Venezuela and both parties agree on regime change in Venezuela. It's right next door to us. It's got infinity oil. It is the land of plenty. We had it under control until 1998. It is like the Iran, like a couple 100 miles from Miami. It's right there. And if we get it, we get so much that it's not, and I have so many other fish to fry that I just look at the Venezuela thing and I go, all right, CIA's doing shit in Venezuela. There's so many allies that I have who are invested in that, so I just don't talk about it much. It's not something like Ukraine where it's like a $300 billion investment and like the whole geopolitical Earth axis tilts on it. So I've only really talked about it in that like stream or two we did on, the funny thing happened on the way to Venezuela. And I talked about all the dynamics with Elon, with Trump, with the Trump base, with the bipartisan stuff. So I won't rehash that all here. But the reason that I wanted to, on the limited brain power that I have tonight, do this Venezuela thing is because Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone dropped a new video that I think is deceptively important for understanding the structure of blob ops. This is about an hour video, and I just want to listen to this tonight and annotate alongside with you guys, because I think the story that will unfold over this video is one that will help explain the structure of blob ops globally It will help explain the nature of the relationship between the U.S. government, the donor drafter class, the NGOs, and private paramilitary groups. And that same...
Yeah, hello? Yeah, hello? Hello? Yeah? No, thank you.
Structure everywhere around the world. And there are many things happening around Venezuela right now that are interesting to tee off on independently. So I think what I'm going to start with is a couple of things to note. So if you remember, everyone wanted Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So if you remember, the Nobel Peace Prize this year was won by Maria Corina Machado. Nobel Peace Prize. A glowing review by the New York Times. And you'll notice this is kind of the only time that the New York Times will praise someone that Donald Trump is praising. Maria Corina Machado actually dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, if you remember. Anyway, so she dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize.
Welcome
this is the
to
Venezuelan
the
opposition
and thank
leader,
you for
Maria
being here
Corina Machado.
with me today.
The
And
Nobel Peace Prize brings
congratulations on winning
hope
the Nobel Peace
and
Prize
scrutiny to democratic struggle, right?
2 weeks ago.
Thank you very much, David. It's my pleasure.
Today, you are in hiding. In October of 2023, you won the presidential primary election in Venezuela. Last March, you were disqualified from running in the general election. You appointed ultimately a surrogate, Edmundo Gonzalez. After the vote for the general election for the presidency, your party presented evidence that claimed that you had won 69.5% of the votes, while Maduro, through the National Electoral Council, declared that he was the winner with 51% of the votes. This is the recap of a very long story of the Maduro regime, and prior to that, the Chavez regime, and its effect on the people of Venezuela, which you have tried to bring to light on the global stage. I was hoping to frame up the story for our audience, who may not know the history of Venezuela very well, by talking a little bit about the background of the country and how your childhood and your youth brought you to the stage that you're on today. And just to provide a little bit of background, and forgive me for my lengthy introduction, but I think it's important for folks to understand that the discovery of oil in Venezuela in 1914 began an economic boom that really kicked off in 1922. Today, Venezuela has proven oil reserves of 300 billion barrels, the number one proven oil reserve in the world. Saudi Arabia is number two at 266 billion, and the US is at 48 billion. Over the decades that followed the discovery of oil in Venezuela, there was initially an improvement in the economy through the investment by the Seven Sisters, which are a group of 7 oil companies. And ultimately, there was a transition in the country to nationalize oil production. And that led to, I think, the story that brings us here today. So, Maria Corina, again, thank you for being here. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your youth.
Well, first of all, I have to thank you.
Because this is a unique, decisive moment in Venezuela. We've been under this tyranny
that has turned into a real criminal structure for 26 years, that have turned, what used to be one of the freest and richest countries in the Americas into one of the poorest, and with a third of our population forced to flee. So imagine what a tragedy. It shows that, you can have huge, unique natural endowments, but that's not wealth. You need talent, you need institutions, and you need freedom in order to turn that in the well-being of your people. I was born in an incredible family. I thank the Lord because we have a huge family, like Latin American family, like to be, together, hanging around all the time. My father was an incredible industrial entrepreneur. He is perhaps the smartest and most generous and honest individuals I've met in my life. And he taught us the responsibility that comes with that, with your family values and the opportunity life gives you. And that's why I only imagine my life in Venezuela and in freedom. And we grew with that sense of responsibility. And but to be honest, I'm part of a generation that, look politics with, rejection or even contempt. I said I would do anything in my life but politics. And we thought that we had inherited democracy forever. We took it for granted. And when Chavez arrived, our lives were, turned over. And we realized that we need to exercise citizenship if we wanted to live with freedom. And that's how it all started. I never thought I would be sitting here with you talking about politics or democracy.
Yeah. I never thought I would be sitting on a podcast, but life takes us down strange paths. What were the conditions in the country when Chavez came to power? What sort of life were you living? What were you seeing in the country that enabled Chavez to come to power? And what did he promise the people?
Look, we had a period of democracy that brought Venezuela huge opportunities, that widespread education and health. Unfortunately, we stopped short of a real free economy, but the state control, not only of institutions, but as you mentioned, when the oil companies were, turned into the government, statistized, and.
Okay, so we've talked about Maria Corina Machado before in the context of this network dating back to the early 1980s, really, around Iran-Contra. Elliot Abrams was the big Venezuela guy under Trump 1. Elliot Abrams. He was appointed by Mike Pompeo as special representative for Venezuela. Elliot Abrams. So he was the special representative for the State Department for Venezuela. He was in foreign policy under Reagan, Bush, and Trump, Council on Foreign Relations. His involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal under Reagan in the 1980s led to his conviction in 1991 on 2 counts of unlawfully withholding information from Congress. Boy, bring that back. Can you imagine someone today being criminally charged for unlawfully withholding information from Congress? When's the last time unlawfully, maybe you could argue, is that kind of like, when they said Steve Bannon defied a subpoena? But you don't see that very often. Anyway, he was arrested during Iran-Contra, and then under Trump 1, ran our whole Venezuela policy. But Maria Corina Machado was also at the same Yale World's Fellow program that Alexei Navalny from Russia was at. And I believe she's also at Florida International University. Yeah. Maria Corina Machado, she's at their democracy program at FIU, which is, a major CIA recruiting center. Juan Guaido is there. We're going to be talking more about Juan Guaido in a second here. But this is not to say, I'm staying out of it. I'm not saying that's good, bad, ugly. It is what it is. And of course, the dean of FIU, the dean of his law school, was Alex Acosta, who was the prosecutor who gave the sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's a tangled web. Oh, this is the other thing that was funny that came out this week on Venezuela. Did you guys see this headline? I thought this was hysterical. Trump admin authorizes CIA covert action in Venezuela. I love this headline so much. Could we be so kind as to announce to the world when we are authorizing CIA covert action in every country? Have you ever seen a headline like this? Be real. Have you ever seen a headline that straight up says, we are authorizing CIA covert action? In chat, let me know. Have you ever seen this headline about any country anywhere? Kind of not covert anymore if you're announcing in the New York Times that you're authorizing covert action. I just love it, right? Because, like, this is called the presidential finding. I've talked about this a lot of times in the context of USAID, right? One of the reasons that USAID is the main funnel for covert action is because you don't need written authorization of covert action like you do with the CIA. Every covert action has to be authorized by the President of the United States. After the Church Committee after the Church Committee reforms of the late 1970s, in order to stop presidents from being able to do CIA action, but then say, oh, I didn't know about it, there became a legal requirement for something called a presidential finding. I'll just show you guys presidential finding. A presidential finding is a presidential directive required by statute to be delivered to certain congressional committees, the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, to justify the commencement of covert operations by the CIA. Okay, so this is but normally it just goes to so like, for example, Joe Biden was privy to all of these CIA covert actions for 40 years before he was the vice president under Obama, because he was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which gets access to presidential findings. So it's, again, this Biden CIA family. And same with Kamala Harris when she was in the Senate and moved over to the Senate and was quickly put on the Senate Intelligence Committee. But it's not normally announced in the New York Times, the presidential finding. So that happened this week. At the same time, we're doing some pretty unprecedented stuff, like we are blowing up Venezuelan drug dealers. This, to my knowledge, has never been done before. So there's a lot going on in Venezuela. But we're going to go back to a time, and this is also another reason why USAID has so many Republican backers. It's because of USAID's involvement in Venezuela. Crypto is big in Venezuela right now. When I talk about why I'm long, why my whole bullish on bullshit thing, when I talk, like, if you look at like Circle partnership, stablecoin Venezuela, Circle partners with Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and AirTM to deliver aid to Venezuelans circumventing the Venezuelan state banking system. So through a collaboration with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, led by President-elect Juan Guaido, this was the CIA-backed opposition candidate in Venezuela under Trump 1, who got the bipartisan, standing ovation, even when Trump didn't at the State of the Union. In coordination with the U.S. government, we were able to put in place an aid disbursement pipeline that leveraged the power of the crypto stablecoin Circle to bypass the financial controls imposed by Maduro, the head of state in Venezuelan, over the domestic financial system, and put millions of...
Could be a turnaround play. this is where money's made on these type. These turnaround plays, you can make some good coin. If you catch them right. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if this place. Yeah. What is that? I didn't know Vimeo, yeah. What's been going on with that? Vimeo. Bending spoons. Wow. To be honest, yeah, maybe like, what if Alta just scooped this? The chain claims to have. Let's see, can we see their locations? They know exactly where we're at. About like California. They got one up here. They're just on the East Coast. That's what you're telling me. They got them all over here. Why is there so many? I don't even know if waxing is popular. I guess that's the issue. I don't really know anything about this. What's this lady saying about it?
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual!
What does she own a place?
Stop taking meeting notes and let ClickUp AI Note Taker do it for you. It allows you to focus on your meetings, not your notes.
Hey guys, this is Kristen with the Hiss and Kitten Waxing Center. Today I'm going to explain why I love being a waxer. So before I jump in, if maybe I'll have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to comment down below, like, subscribe. Also, if you are on Facebook,
Oh, is that it? What is the waxing gel made of? Oh shoot, you're putting resin? Dude, that's gotta, no way. It didn't even do anything. Oh. Yeah, I'm seeing this Hollywood. Oh shit. Oh my god. Is he getting sexual? What's this lady saying?
And where you come from, because technically Brazilian was back from when the Brazilians invented the Brazilian wax, so that was literally everything off. However, in the UK, they have said the Brazilian is the wax with a landing strip. So when I say a landing strip, right, just use your imagination, whatever that is there. Can you see what I'm doing with my artistic skills? Here, on the top of the pubic mound, is your pubic hair that's left. Like a triangle, it could be a star.
Okay. So pretty much a Brazilian leaves some hair there and a Hollywood one doesn't. Alright. God, this is weird. Yeah, I thought eyebrows were normal. I mean, they netted income, so cash flow positive. Why are they doing? Yeah, what does that mean? Who owns it though? Started as a family-owned business. David, these two guys. Kinda don't know what I was expecting. listen to an earnings call then. How about that? Let's see if they sound legit.
Good day, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to the European Wax Center third quarter 2025 earnings conference call. At this time, all participants are on listen-only mode. After the speaker's presentation, there will be a question-and-answer session. To ask a question during the session, you will need to press star 11 on your telephone. You will then hear an automated message advising your hand is raised. To withdraw your question, please press star 11 again. Please be advised that today's conference is being recorded. I would now like to hand the conference over to your speaker today, Tom Kim, Chief Financial Officer. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you and welcome to European Wax Center's third quarter fiscal year 2025 earnings call. On today's call, Chris Morris will provide an update on the company's performance and discuss additional details regarding progress made on our priorities. Then I will discuss our third quarter results and fiscal 2025 outlook. Following the prepared remarks, we will be able to take questions.
Your speaker today, Tom Kim, Chief Financial Officer. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you and welcome to European Wax Center's third quarter fiscal year 2025 earnings call. On today's call, Chris Morris will provide an update on the company's performance and discuss additional details regarding progress made on our priorities. Then I will discuss our third quarter results and fiscal 2025 outlook. Following the prepared remarks, we will be able to take questions. Before we start, I would like to remind you of our legal disclaimer. We will make certain statements today which are forward-looking within the meaning of the federal securities laws, including statements about the outlook of our business and other matters referenced in our earnings release issued today. These forward-looking statements involve a number of risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially. Please refer to our SEC filings as well as our earnings release issued today for a more detailed description of the risk factors that may affect our results. Please also note that these forward-looking statements reflect our opinions only as of the date of this call, and we take no obligation to revise or publicly release the results of any revision to our forward-looking statements in light of new information.
That's why that's getting all your attention to this.
Also during this call, we will discuss non-GAAP financial measures which adjust our GAAP results to eliminate the impact of certain items. You will find additional information regarding these non-GAAP financial measures and a reconciliation of these non-GAAP to GAAP measures in our earnings release. Our live broadcast of this call is also available on the Investor Relations section of our website at investors.waxcenter.com. I will now turn the call over to Chris Morris.
Thank you, Tom, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to discuss European Wax Center's third quarter 2025 financial performance. In Q3, we delivered system-wide sales of $238.2 million, 20 basis points of same-store sales growth, and $20.2 million in adjusted EBITDA. I've now been with European Wax Center for 10 months, and it's clear we've made meaningful progress in laying a strong foundation for growth and profitability. While we still have work ahead, we are in a much stronger position than when we began this journey, thanks to the dedication of our franchisees, associates, and our refreshed leadership team. 2025 is a pivotal year of transformation dedicated to strengthening and accelerating the fundamentals that power our business model. Over the past several months, we've refined our acquisition messaging, deepened our use of data to unlock actionable insights, and partnered even more closely with our franchisees to drive local impact. This year, my senior leaders and I have doubled the amount of stores we visited in the past, meeting directly with more franchisees and in-center teams, listening to their perspectives, recognizing what's working and witnessing firsthand the passion and discipline that shape our incredible guest experience. While transformations take time and progress is rarely linear, we believe our core business is stable, focused, and positioned to capture growth ahead. Over the past several quarters, we've worked to become a smarter, more agile organization, one with sharper visibility into what's driving performance and the ability to adapt quickly when challenges arise. This focus has strengthened our ability to identify opportunities sooner, act decisively, and translate learnings into measurable progress across the business, which I will highlight today. Very importantly, we're reaffirming our full-year financial guidance, reinforcing the strength and resiliency of our model. I am confident we are headed in the right direction, and every action we take is anchored in three clear strategic priorities. Driving sales through traffic growth, improving four-wall profitability for our franchisees through operational excellence, and pursuing disciplined, profitable expansion. I will expand on our progress in each of these areas before turning the call over to Tom to deliver our Q3 financial results. Turning first to traffic growth among both new and existing guests, powered by continued investment in a robust, data-driven marketing engine. Over the past year, we've taken a hard look at our marketing tactics, testing, learning, and optimizing how we reach and convert guests across channels to drive visits and deepen engagement. We've eliminated underperforming tactics and doubled down on those driving results. While much of this work has been about building a durable foundation and putting those insights to work to accelerate momentum in the next year, our disciplined test and learn approach is already improving efficiency and returns. For existing guests, we're seeing clear signs of progress. Retention is stable quarter over quarter, fewer guests are lapsing, and engagement in our Wax Pass program remains strong, which is an enduring source of strength for us. Within our guest base, visit frequency remains our largest opportunity for growth. During the quarter, we launched even more structured guest lifecycle campaigns, building on the successes from Q2. We also introduced new franchisee reporting on their guest frequency, enabling them with actionable center-level data. This reporting helps them identify key controllable traffic drivers, pinpoint performance gaps, and quantify the impact of specific actions to improve results. It provides clear visibility into what's within their control, turning data into actionable insights and accountability. It went live in Q3, and we're already seeing strong franchisee engagement. At the beginning of 2025, we prioritized marketing contactability as an important frequency enabler for existing guests, and over the course of the year have materially improved the percentage of guests that we are able to contact via SMS or email. With this improved access to our guests, we now more directly managing risks and opportunities on frequency. Through this process, we gained valuable insight into which guest outreach tactics are replicable and scalable. Our focus now is on relevance, creating consistent, personalized communication with guests that more directly speak to our guests about what matters to them. We believe that this tailored approach will continue to help convert less frequent guests into high-frequency visitors and deepen engagement across our existing guest base. Turning to new guest acquisition, which remains a top priority and key to returning to sustainable traffic growth. While we're still not seeing the levels of new guest growth we would like to, we continue to focus on the things we can control in an evolving macro environment and are encouraged by the progress we've made. In Q3, we leveraged our enhanced data insights to identify actionable opportunities that allow us to more effectively target and attract new guests. Additionally, our improved capabilities allowed us to pivot and refine the rollout of regional marketing pilots. Together, these learnings enabled us to quickly refine our processes and scale guest acquisition through paid media within the quarter. Given the importance of word of mouth in our categories, we have also refocused the network on our referral program, a powerful and cost-effective channel for new guests. Looking ahead to Q4, the overhaul of our influencer strategy to reach prospects more authentically and at scale that began in Q3 will be a key focus. We've partnered with a new influencer agency, and the content we've produced is already showing a 75% improvement in efficiency related to our prior influencer content. Our execution of a National Eyebrow Day activation included our new influencer strategy on top of a PR media push, which helped us break through at new levels. The campaign delivered more than 75 million impressions and drove a 53% lift in unique website visitors. Finally, we're excited to have brought on a new brand agency partner to help refine our brand and better connect with high-value audiences.
But they already lost 100 mil. And I don't think they can say it was from a growth strategy. Why did it have so much debt?
Audiences. Together, we've completed foundational work, including site visits and surveys, all aimed at deepening our understanding of our positioning and what will resonate most with guests going forward. While this initiative will scale meaningfully in 2026, it's already shaping how we think and act today. As I've said before, there's still work to be done, but we're far better positioned from both a sales and traffic perspective than we were a year ago, thanks to the insights and learnings we've gained. Moving on to our next priority, driving four-wall profitability for franchisees through operational excellence. We continue to believe that the greatest opportunity ahead of us lies inside our centers. In August, we welcomed Angela Jaskolski as our new Chief Operating Officer. While her work is only beginning, Angela has already taken a more granular look at in-center operations and has been active in the field, working closely with franchisees to demonstrate how elevating the guest experience can meaningfully impact center performance. One of Angela's key priorities is digging deep into the factors within a center's control, which we know have a direct impact on sales and retention. Her team is focused on ensuring franchisees have the tools, insights, and resources they need to strengthen operations and ultimately improve profitability. We believe this disciplined focus on center controllables is critical to driving stronger unit economics and delivering a consistent, high-quality guest experience across the system. In addition, performance in Q2 and Q3 confirmed the role of franchisee engagement and hands-on support in driving performance. We've continued to expand in-center coaching and training resources to ensure every franchisee can access and implement best practices consistently, while also exploring ways technology can unlock additional upside at the unit level. These learnings from 2025 are shaping a comprehensive operational strategy for 2026 focused on closing training and infrastructure gaps, enhancing field support and franchisee engagement, and driving greater consistency and stronger center profitability across our network. Finally, our third priority is grounded in advancing a disciplined development approach that supports thoughtful, profitable expansion. Under the leadership of Kurt Smith, our new Chief Development Officer, we've completed a deep network analysis to help us prepare for the remainder of 2025 and 2026. Our development and operations team have also launched a focused effort to strengthen unit economics, mitigate future closure risk, and improve network health. Through our analysis, we've identified centers that are ramping more slowly and determined where we believe targeted action can make the greatest impact, especially in attractive markets. We're working directly with these franchisees to strengthen performance through targeted operational support, training, and local marketing. Improving unit economics across the system remains essential to reducing closure risk over the long term. As we continue this work, we now expect total closures to be between 35 and 40 for the year, compared to our prior estimates of 40 to 60. This reflects both timing shifts in anticipated closures and the traction we're seeing in our strategic initiatives with franchisees as we thoughtfully assess which centers should remain in the system. Looking ahead, our focus turns to 2026, where we're working closely with franchisees to refine development plans that reflect the timing of 25 closures and continued progress on our strategic initiatives. Our class of 2026 openings are taking shape, and we believe we remain on track to return to positive net center growth by year end as development momentum builds throughout the year. We continue to prioritize new centers and markets with strong demand and solid unit economics to support sustainable, profitable growth. Encouragingly, our 2025 class continues to ramp above pre-pandemic levels, underscoring the commitment of our franchisee partners and the effectiveness of our grand opening playbook. And we're applying those insights in efforts to set our 2026 openings up for success. As we look to finish the year strong, I'm confident in the path we're on and the progress we're making. We are confidently taking action, having built better data, sharper insights, and a clearer view of what's within our control to keep the system healthy and moving forward. We're using that visibility to make smarter decisions, focus on the levers that matter most, and drive consistent execution across the business. While results can fluctuate quarter to quarter, we believe the work we're doing now is building lasting strength and setting the stage for sustained growth. We have the right leadership, the right strategy, and the discipline to stay focused on what drives performance. The momentum is building and the opportunity ahead is significant. I've never been more confident in where we're headed. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom to walk through our Q3 financial results and share more about our outlook for the year. Tom?
Thank you, Chris. Before I begin my remarks, I'd like to remind everyone that our discussion of growth rates on this call will refer to the third quarter of fiscal 2025 compared to the third quarter of fiscal 2024. Now to our results. We delivered another solid quarter, underscoring the progress we're making on our strategic priorities in this pivotal transitional year. Our performance reflects disciplined execution, a strong business model, and a continued momentum in the initiatives that are strengthening our foundation for sustainable growth. Same-store sales grew 20 basis points year over year. System-wide sales decreased 0.8% to $238.2 million, driven primarily by the impact of closed centers.
Oh no. No. Dude, all these directors don't even do shit. It's kind of annoying. Where'd that go? Where'd the earnings go?
As we continue to build out our marketing and operational capabilities under our new leadership team, we are gaining clearer visibility into what's driving performance and where targeted actions can strengthen guest engagement and traffic. Comp trends were strong through July and mid-August, before softening in the latter half of August and September. This was driven in part by short-term factors within our control that we've since addressed. The utilization of our enhanced data insights has already informed changes across the system, and we expect to see the benefits reflected in mature center traffic over the coming months. We ended Q3 with 1,053 centers, down 1% year over year. We opened 3 growth centers during the quarter and closed 9, resulting in 6 net closures, which was better than our expected closure range of 15 to 16, driven by a shift in the timing of anticipated closures and the progress we're making in our strategic initiatives with franchisees. Total revenue of $54.2 million decreased approximately $1.2 million, or 2.2%. Primarily driven by lower contribution from wholesale product and retail revenue as a percentage of system-wide sales. As expected, gross margin increased modestly to 73.3%, in part due to a higher mix of royalty, marketing fees, and product margin improvements. SG&A expenses decreased $4.5 million to $13 million, primarily driven by timing of payroll and benefits, professional fees, and marketing spend. Advertising expense decreased $0.8 million due to the timing of spend within the fiscal year. Adjusted EBITDA of $20.2 million increased 9.6% from $18.4 million in the prior year period. Adjusted EBITDA margin increased 400 basis points to 37.2%. This reflects our continued focus on profitability, cost discipline, and operational efficiency, all of which contributed to significant margin improvement. Q3 results also benefited from the timing of certain operating expenses, including marketing and technology spend tied to our strategic initiatives, which will shift into the fourth quarter. Net interest expense increased to $6.5 million from $6.3 million in the prior year, and income tax expense increased to $2 million from $0.8 million last year. Adjusted net income increased 14.2% to $10.7 million from $9.3 million last year. Lastly, as a housekeeping item, as of November 7th, 2025, there were 43.7 million Class A common shares outstanding and 20.7 million potentially diluted shares related to Class B shares and outstanding equity awards. Turning now to the balance sheet. Our $40 million revolver remains fully undrawn, and we ended the quarter with $73.6 million in cash and $387 million outstanding under our senior secured notes. Our net leverage ratio at quarter end was 3.9 times and would have been approximately 3.7 times, excluding the $16.1 million in stock buybacks executed over the trailing 12 months, which includes $0.4 million.
These people, oh my gosh, I hate that companies do that. Yeah, see, just repay the debt. If you don't have a company, the shares don't matter. And then the way to not have a company is to go under. So, why? He's gonna, oh shit, he's just gonna push that forward. E6, so I'll jump there. No bueno. This is close. I should have looked at that more. Oh well.
Tax related to 2024 buyback. As of quarter end, we had $4.1 million remaining under our current $50 million share repurchase authorization. Our franchise model continues to produce consistent free cash flow, providing us both the flexibility and financial strength to maintain a disciplined capital allocation strategy. In Q3, year-to-date, operating activities generated $45.2 million in net cash compared to $2.2 million of investing cash outflows. Our whole business securitization structure remains a source of stability, allowing us to meet debt obligations safely, invest in the brand, and maintain a healthy balance sheet in a dynamic macro environment. Turning now to our current outlook for the balance of 2025. Starting with our unit expectations for the year, we are narrowing our closure range to between 35 and 40, which reflects timing shifts in anticipated closures and progress made on our initiatives to strengthen the health of our network in partnership with our franchisees. We continue to expect 12 gross openings in 2025, resulting in 23 to 28 net center closures for the full year. Moving to our financial outlook. As we've discussed in prior quarters, our guidance for 2025 reflects a balanced view of our transformation progress and the expected timing benefits from our strategic initiatives. As we approach the end of the year, our results are tracking within our previously communicated outlook, enabling us to reaffirm our financial guidance for the year. We continue to expect system-wide sales of $940 to $950 million and same-store sales to be flat to up 1% for the full year. Our adjusted EBITDA outlook remains unchanged at $69 to $71 million, reflecting continued disciplined execution and cost management. Full-year revenue remains in the range of $205 to $209 million, reflecting stable transaction trends and initiatives to support franchisee health. While we continue to see steady progress across our strategic priorities, new guest acquisition remains pressured, and we expect to see more improvement in 2026. We continue to plan for advertising expenses slightly above 3% of system-wide sales. On tariffs, we've continued to stay ahead of potential impacts by partnering closely with our suppliers and further diversifying our sourcing. These ongoing efforts to optimize our supply chain give us confidence in our ability to manage cost pressures and maintain our EBITDA outlook. Finally, we continue to expect adjusted net income between $31 million and $33 million, reflecting an approximately 23% effective tax rate before discrete items. In summary, our financial guidance remains unchanged, and the progress we've made to date gives us confidence that we're on track for the remainder of the year. The strategic groundwork we've established, from strengthening franchisee alignment and enhancing guest analytics to refining our marketing playbook, is beginning to take hold. We're encouraged that these initiatives are reinforcing the foundation of our business and positioning us for sustainable long-term growth. As we continue to execute with focus and discipline, we expect to see greater consistency, stability in our top-line performance. We remain confident in our ability to navigate 2025 within our expectations and position the brand for meaningful growth in 2026. With that, operator, please open the line for questions.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, please press star 1 on your phone and wait for your name to be announced. To withdraw your question, press star 1 again. We ask that you please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Our first question comes from the line of Scott Ciccarelli with Truist. Your line is now open.
Hey, good morning, Josh. On for Scott. So it sounds like the revamped marketing efforts are showing solid early results in terms of re-engaging for those less frequent guests. Can you just give us any quantification in terms of the lift that you're seeing there, and how do you think that can look as we move into 2026?
Yep. Hey, Josh. This is Chris. Here's what I can tell you is we are seeing, so there are three main things that we're focused on top line growth. One is marketing tactics aimed right at existing guests. Two is a focused effort on new guest acquisition, and three is ops execution. So your question is more around existing guests. We have seen quite a bit of ability now that we have developed robust reporting around our guest behavior, and we're able to group our guests into a certain set of routines. we have more insight than ever before into how to intercept those guests and drive behavior going forward. Adding to that has been our focused effort partnering directly with our franchisees to grow our contactability number. So when we started the year, we only had the ability to contact about 38% of our guests. Today we have 60%. We have an ability to contact 60% of our guests. And so as you can imagine, that just gives us so much more opportunity to engage with our guests. And we know when we do that we have a greater chance of being able to drive behavior going forward. And so through that effort, we have been able to through a focused effort, to take a non-routine guest and start to drive them into routines. And we are seeing an improvement in our frequency. I really don't want to get into the habit of disclosing, specific frequency numbers across all those different bands. But I can tell you that we've seen meaningful progress in that ability, and it gives us a lot of confidence as we move forward.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Dana Telsey with Telsey Advisory Group. Your line is open.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As you talked about the cadence of the quarter, what did you notice about your core consumer? How is it different? How is it the same? What are you seeing from Wax Pass sales, and how is that trending? And regional trends, anything California versus other areas? And then I just have a follow-up.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Dana. This business just continues to be very stable. Wax Pass sales, we're seeing a slight uptick on a year-over-year basis in Wax Pass sales. When we look at our total core guests, our core guest is very stable. It's been stable throughout the entire year. So we're not seeing any meaningful movement there. And so that gives us, that stability just reinforces our confidence as we move forward. Our big opportunity is everything that I just walked through with Josh. Our big opportunity going forward is to build on that stability by, one, engaging with our existing guests to drive more frequency. Two, partnering with our operators to drive more new guest retention. And three, to continue to build on all the success that we've seen on our marketing tactics around new guest acquisition. So when all that comes together, we believe we're going to be poised for long-term sustainable growth because we're starting from such a strong position of strength. Not many brands have the stability that we have in this brand. In terms of regional differences, we've actually seen, throughout the year, we've seen some improvement in California, where we continue to see more weakness is in areas like New York, Philadelphia, D.C. But having said that, I'll tell you, it's not a situation where you have 3 or 4 markets pulling down the entire company. We see relative consistency across the entire country. But if there's more weakness in one area or the other, it's those 3 areas: New York, Philadelphia, and D.C. But we've seen some improvement in California.
Got it. And then just on the center openings and closings as you move forward. Thoughts on more closings, less closings, openings? Is there any difference in cost of opening, different construction or configuration of a center that you're looking for, and how you're thinking about closings go forward? Thank you.
Yes, sure. So we are in the throes right now of building out our business plan for 2026 and partnering directly with our franchisees on what those business priorities are. And so in February, the next time we get in front of all of you, we will provide guidance on exactly how we see 2026 playing out. What I can tell you is we're very pleased that we're now narrowing the range on closures. We started the year saying 40 to 60, and now we're saying 35 to 40. And some of that is timing, so some of those closures are moving into 2026, and some of it is just improving the partnership with our franchisees and starting to make progress on our initiatives. So we do expect closures next year. We're still in the process of sizing that up. What I can tell you is with respect to NCOs, we continue to target that by the end of 2026, we will return to net positive growth from that point forward. So that's consistent. We've been saying that from the beginning of 2025, and we still believe we're on track to do that. So the way that'll play out next year is there'll be closures in the beginning of the year, but then when they move into the end of the year, we'll be in a positive position. And you have to remember that when we started, basically our NCO development was on pause. So in order to go from something that's on pause to returning to growth, there's a lag time. We're working closely with our franchisees on sizing up what growth looks like next year, and we're pleased with that pipeline and how that's shaping up, and I'll share more of that with you in February.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Jonathan Komp with Baird. Your line is now open.
Yeah, good morning. This is Alex Conway on for John. If I could just ask again about the units. You as you just mentioned, cutting the guidance for closures for this year. What are you still seeing out of the units that are having to close? What are the main holdups, and what's really giving you that confidence that those pressures are going to alleviate by the second half of next year?
So the units that are closing are low volume units, and they've been low volume units from day one. And the reason they're low volume is just a variety of different reasons. Bad real estate, bad market. In some cases, franchisees just had some other unique circumstances that they were managing through. But it's just all low volume units, and so we've worked closely with them and to understand what's where is this unit, how is this unit performing, what are the chances that we can get it back up to profitability. And we just had a number of units that when we went through that exercise, we did not feel like that it made sense for those units to continue to open. It's ultimately the franchisee's decision, but we're partnering directly with the franchisee to assess that situation. Lease expiration date really plays a big role in this, because obviously the franchisee is still on the hook for the lease if they close before the expiration date. And so we're, as we've kind of sorted through our portfolio, we've first understood the financial performance and then also understood lease expirations. And that's how we've been able to kind of get our arms around the risk of closure here in 2025 and as we look for 2026. In terms of our confidence that by the end of 2026 we'll be back into NCO positive growth territory is we've got we really have our arms around the overall health of the portfolio, and so we feel confident that we have a good grip on where the risk is, and our communication and partnership with our franchisees just continues to get better and better. And so that gives us confidence that we're not going to be surprised in a material way. And then secondly is we are seeing a lot of green shoots throughout the business. And so as our team has dug in and worked directly with our franchisees, it's becoming very clear where the opportunities are. And what has me excited is not only do we know where the opportunities are, but there is a shared passion across the network for addressing those opportunities. So we're seeing improvement in our ability to target existing guests to drive frequency. We're seeing improvement in our ability to effectively scale our acquisitions on new guest acquisitions. And we have alignment on what we need to do operationally and improved reporting to highlight where the opportunities are. And I just believe the combination of all that is going to put us in a position to where we can really start seeing some improvement into 2026.
Great. Thanks for all that color. And then maybe just follow up on the modeling side, it seems like in the first 3 quarters you drove decent EBITDA growth year-over-year, and obviously the guidance is showing that below for the full year. Are there any unique factors to Q4 that we should be thinking about that's kind of causing the lower year-over-year growth?
Thanks, Alex. So what we comment is we still believe in the full year guidance that holds relative to top line with our comp trajectory and what we're seeing in the system. And then on the bottom line standpoint, as we've guided and reiterated to the EBITDA, that still holds as well, and we're very confident in delivering against that. And when you take the two components of top line and bottom line and what that implies, you can see that from a yearly standpoint, the adjusted EBITDA target ranges in that 30-44% range. When you look at it, take a step back and look at the whole year as a whole, and this is what you're calling out, there are some timing situations going on that will play out through the year, but we are very confident as you look through the modeling and you level out through the year to those targets and the bottom line implication, that's the dynamic that will play out in Q4.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question at this time, please press star 1 on your touch telephone. Our next question comes from the line of Simeon Gutman with Morgan Stanley. Your line is now open.
Hey, good morning, everyone. At first, I want to ask about new guest acquisition. It seems like it's a big piece of the three-pronged approach. Can I ask what your hypothesis is on what is holding it back? If there's anything regionally, broader marketing, if there are certain markets that are just more mature. So, why has that been tougher than you've expected to turn?
A combination of factors. One, just having robust data, having the right data analytics to gather the right insights to then know what decisions to make and how to pivot. Our team, I've been with the company now for 10 months, and then I feel very fortunate that I've been able to attract an incredibly talented group of individuals. Those individuals have onboarded and then started to not only develop the reporting, but then to develop the tactics to test and learn to get better and better. And so a lot of it is just knowing exactly how to drive the most effectiveness through marketing dollars. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons why we are so enthusiastic about where we are at this stage in our journey, because all that work that we've been doing over the last several months is now really starting to take hold, and we feel much smarter, and we're seeing the results of that improved intelligence actually making an impact on our ability to scale. So just being able to build all that out has taken some time. I would say, our brand, you see us, I mentioned in prepared remarks that we hired a new brand agency to work with us closely on developing a brand identity that will help us make more progress in high-value acquisitions. And so we think that there's a big opportunity to just inject new life into the brand. And we're doing that in close partnership with our franchisees as well, just so we can leverage all their years of experience with this brand to help guide that. But we're very excited about that work. And that's underway right now. And we will you'll start seeing that show up in the market in 2026. So a combination of the right intelligence, along with a freshened, lively brand aimed at high-valued acquisitions. We think that combination is really going to pay off.
Okay, and thanks for that. And the follow-up is, can you give us a sense of guest count versus ticket in the quarter? And then what is the right model or mode for the business? Is it flat guest count? I'm sure you want it up, but can it be flattish and then you can grow with price, or it has to be positive guest count with some level of price as well?
We don't Our reporting practices are we don't provide that level of granularity, that breakdown. But to answer the second part of your question, ultimately, we want to drive traffic into the centers. We believe that is our very sharp focus is to generate long-term sustainable traffic count growth. I do think in the realities of the business, we can't do that just alone. We have to also be mindful of ticket. And so we're trying to take a really balanced approach. So this will never be, you're not going to see our team driving traffic through promotions, a deep discounted promotional type of tactic. We're going to be very conscious of attacking both sides of that. So ultimately, we want to get to long-term sustainable traffic count growth coupled with smart ticket growth. And that ticket growth can come in the form of price increases as well as add-ons. So as we are focusing on building out the reporting, the capabilities to be able to engage with our existing guests, it puts us in a better position to deliver a message to that guest in a way that's going to resonate to drive more incremental spending, either through services or retail product. And so that's ultimately that would also drive ticket. So it's not just going to be price; it's going to be a combination of all of those. So that was a long way of saying we're going to take a balanced approach.
Thank you. And I'm currently showing no further questions at this time. I'd like to now turn the call back over to Chris Morris for closing remarks.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time today and your support. We look forward to sharing with you our progress update in February and walking through our plans for 2026. Have a great day.
This concludes today's conference.
Of dollars of funds into the hands of people fighting the opposition. So essentially, crypto is being used by the CIA and USAID to fund the Venezuelan opposition in a way that the Maduro Venezuelan government can't stop because it's not going through Venezuelan banks. This is why I say this is what the real use case of crypto is. It's not people buying bananas with Bitcoin. It's the CIA using it to bypass. Like it's kind of like my Bitcoin 2024 speech last year. Where I said, listen, you guys are going to get rich, or you've already gotten rich, but not for the reasons you probably. This is not like some plucky libertarian underdog story. Like, you are not using crypto to bypass the banks. The CIA is using crypto to bypass the banks. This is not like crypto is not cutting out the banking middleman. It's not like cutting out the state. It's the state using crypto to bypass other states. And when you look at the entirety of the remittances and like USAID that runs through this, it's just a gobsmacking amount. It's the volume of the market. So anyway, let's turn, just kind of level setting. Now, this is Al Jazeera. There are a million videos I could have picked for this, but this is a short one. This is Al Jazeera, which is Qatar, and usually very critical of U.S. foreign policy. I'm just going to play a little bit from this, and then we'll get into the substance.
Exactly is the U.S. up to in Venezuela? A New York Times report from 2018 claims that the Trump administration held secret meetings in 2017 with Venezuelan military officers to discuss their plans to overthrow President Nicolas Maduro. That would not have been the first time a U.S. administration has meddled in Venezuela's affairs. In fact, U.S. involvement in Venezuela dates back decades.
Well, it's not new. As the history record proves, the U.S. has sought regime change in Venezuela since the election of Hugo Chavez.
This has been going on a long time. I think the main difference is that the Trump administration is much more aggressive about it and open about it.
But you can't talk about U.S. intervention in Venezuela or even Latin America without mentioning a nearly 200-year-old policy called the Monroe Doctrine.
To put it simply, it basically declared that the United States had a kind of supremacy in this hemisphere.
Originally designed to block European powers claiming colonies in Latin America, the Monroe Doctrine was later interpreted to mean the U.S. also claimed the right to overrule the democratic process on the continent through invasions, coups, and CIA covert operations.
The United States is an empire, and so if you're an empire, you want as many countries as possible to line up with you. And so the pawns matter as well in a chess game.
In 2013, Secretary of State John Kerry announced the end of the Monroe Doctrine.
Many years ago, the United States dictated a policy that defined the hemisphere for many years after. We've moved past that era.
But how true is that statement?
It never ended. In terms of foreign policy, there is very little difference between liberal Democrats.
All right. Actually, you guys probably know this video. So basically, in 1998, Hugo Chavez takes power, and it kicks off this era of us trying to regime change Venezuela. And things come to a head during the first Trump admin with Juan Guaido. By the way, tomorrow, Grokpedia goes online. Elon is soft launching a buggy version of his own Wikipedia, Grokpedia, tomorrow, which is going to be potentially game-changing as like a level set, new Wikipedia. So Juan Guaido lost the vote in Venezuela, but the U.S. declared him the president anyway. So it's kind of interesting that, this is what the Wikipedia says. He never held power. And yet Wikipedia still refers to him as the president of Venezuela. For 4 years. That's so funny. Okay. So what I want to get to is a particular thing called the Bay of Piglets. Let me see if I can... Bay of Piglets, Venezuela. So you guys may be, okay, a bizarre plot to capture. This is how the BBC presented this. This is a July 2020 BBC reporting. So you guys know the Bay of Pigs. That was the big 1961 disaster that created this big schism between JFK and the CIA over Cuba. This was a Rolando Masfer type plot. If you guys remember, during our JFK files, we went over the case of Rolando Masfer, who was a CIA-backed Cuban mercenary who tried to take over a portion using his own hundreds of mercenaries boarding ships to militarily conquer parts of Haiti in order to use that as a launching point against Cuba. And they had backing from the CIA, but opposition from the State Department. And the State Department ended up organizing the arrest of them, and the CIA pressed the Justice Department to drop the charges. The decision by the Justice Department to seek a grand jury indictment against Rolando Masfer and certain of his associates is a potentially explosive matter, which could result in extensive damage to CIA activities in Miami. So this drug dealer and private mercenary on CIA payroll goes and is a hothead and tries to invade Haiti on his own with a group of a couple hundred of his thug friends, fails, and the Justice Department indicts him, and the CIA steps in and says, wait, Justice Department, back off. He belongs to intelligence. Does that sound familiar? Any bells ringing? And then 5 months later, during the past year, we have spent a good deal of time working with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney in Miami on possible problems in connection with the trial of our asset, Rolando Masfer. It's the same thing. It's the same friggin' jurisdiction. The defense has only to obtain testimony from one of the defendants or summon as defense witnesses one or more disaffected former agents of the CIA station in order to begin a chain reaction, surfacing much detail concerning CIA operations. State's strong desire for prosecution of this particular group prevailed over our worries. I want you to just read this. Justice is blind, right? Whether or not someone is prosecuted is not about whether or not they committed a crime. It's about whether the State Department or the Central Intelligence Agency wins. So this is like a big turf war and foreign policy dispute between the CIA and the State Department in the 1960s over Cuba policy. But this is a common thing. This is kind of the story of United Fruit using Bay of Pigs style private mercenaries to conquer parts of Guatemala and Nicaragua. This is, as I mentioned, with Rolando Masfer. There was a Bay of Pigs style thing in Haiti. There was the actual Bay of Pigs in Cuba. But as it was reported, the government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela announced Venezuela's armed forces had repelled an armed incursion. Operation Gideon was a deeply flawed coup attempt. But what would compel exiled Venezuelans and former U.S. Special Forces soldiers to join a plan that from the outset looked like a suicide mission? It's a story that leapt straight out of a 20th century playbook of Latin American conspiracies. It made the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day, because the Bay of Pigs failed in 1961. It was repelled by Cuban counterintelligence and deemed to be a big disaster. Made the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day, quipped one commentator, referring to the failed U.S.-financed invasion of Fidel Castro's Cuba in 1961. Operation Gideon is a staggering tale of hubris, incompetence, and treachery. 8 men were killed by Venezuelan armed forces off the coastal town of Macuto. Dozens of others were captured and remained in jail in Caracas. Less than a handful escaped. And coinciding with the height of the coronavirus pandemic, it attracted less attention outside the Americas than it might have otherwise. At the heart of the failed mission was a former U.S. Special Forces soldier, Jordan Goudreau. And that is going to be the star of our stream.
This is my favorite dentist.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. That will be the star of our stream, as the journalist Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone managed to get Jordan Goudreau for a 1-hour interview as he is facing years in prison on federal arms trafficking charges to explain the real story behind this and what really happened, which is fucking crazy. I mean, this is like, what a get by Max. So, sorry, give me a sec here. Let's get back to our, okay. But this is how it has been reported. Medic, marksman, veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, and recipient of 3 Bronze Stars medals, Goudreau was way out of his depth. A daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia, he intoned in a widely distributed video published hours after it began. So again, from Colombia, the CIA foothold over all of Latin America, Colombia. Our men are, although that's getting complicated now, our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Allow X content? Yeah. Oh, he tweeted out. Okay. Is this his audio?
Venezolanos y compañeros de la Fuerza Armada, superiores y subalternos. Hoy 3 de mayo. This raid was launched. Fuerzas especiales del Ejército de los Estados Unidos.
This is Justin Goudreau.
At 1700 hours, a daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas. Our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Commander Nieto is with me, is co-located, and Commander Sakea is on the ground now fighting.
We have a weird habit in Venezuela of just saying a CIA covert action is playing out in your country. Why do we keep announcing our covert action? Why do we keep doing this? What other country do we do this in? We are in the middle of a surprise military attack on your country. A secret military operation is underway. Let me live tweet my secret mission to overthrow your government. Shh, don't tell anybody as I record a video on social media drawing out our plans. Now, of course, they're doing this in order to provide moral support to the troops on the ground to say the U.S. has your back. But you can see how that's a double-edged sword, you know? Like here, even this, Trump telling, you know, people, yeah, the CIA is, I've authorized covert action. That's a signal to the Venezuelan opposition forces to be braver, to have what Maria Stephan would call a higher risk tolerance, to go out and...
If you're struggling to play the piano, we've uploaded a free piano chord chart for you. It contains 24...
In this video, I'm going to show you how to play it first. So I've got a 1, 3 way down, and on the left going down, we go 1, 2, 3, thumb. So that means the fingers are going to go finger 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then there's 3 notes left. So we need a block of 3 fingers. 3, 2, 1. And on the way down, reverse it. 1, 2, 3, and then it'll... The just starting the top note a little bit and work on 3, and when you get to the top, remember, look ahead at that block of 3, and that informs you that you need to mold a block of 3 fingers into the block of 3 notes, which will help prevent you putting 2 over by accident. Towards the weaker fingers, which is where people's arched hand position, useful tricks to curve flow finger, just like I said with the right hand. Work on everything being nice and even. Remember, look ahead, making sure, which is where people some arched hand position with curved fingers. Don't forget there's that.
Okay, so this is part 4 in my series of tutorials for absolute beginners on the piano. As I've said previously, okay, welcome to the very first in my new series of piano lessons for absolute beginners. There are going to be around 30 or so of these lessons spread throughout 2017. The idea is that they'll help you to learn piano and how to read sheet music from absolute scratch. If you already play piano a little bit, but your skill at reading music is a little bit shaky, or you don't read at all, and I know that a lot of you guys who are already subscribed to my piano channel fall into that category, then these lessons will give you some of the kind of formal background that maybe you've missed. Being able to read music is an immensely useful skill, and although it takes a little bit of effort at first, around how the fingers are numbered, and you're absolutely sure you know all of that stuff, then you can skip this lesson and go straight on to lesson 2. But if you're the slightest bit unsure, stick around for the rest of this lesson. So we've got this huge expanse of 88 notes, and somehow we've got to get to grips with them all. Right now I'm focused on the middle of the keyboard so you can get a good clear view. Now first things first, we only use left and right to talk about our hands, never to talk about direction on the keyboard. When we talk about the keyboard, we talk about the bottom, which is down there, and the top, which is up there. As we go up the keyboard, the notes get higher, and as we go down the keyboard, the notes get lower. Okay? Now 88 notes to learn sounds scary, but like a lot of things in music theory, that's a lot easier than it might seem at first, because although the piano has all these notes, they follow a fairly simple repeating pattern. Every white note is named after one of the letters from A to G. So this note is F, or rather it's one of the Fs on the keyboard. There are others. This is an F, that's an F, and that's an F. Can you see what they all have in common? Each one of those Fs is the white note immediately to the left of one of the groups of 3 black notes. F, 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 F. Here's a C. Now where do you think I'm going to find the other C's? That's right, immediately to the left of one of the groups of 2 black notes. C, 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 C. Okay? And here's an A. Can you see how it sits in the kind of group of 3 black notes there, with 2 black notes to its left and 1 to its right? Again, A, A. Okay, so let's name all the white notes starting on A. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And look, now we're back to an A. Now, we're not always going to be thinking of them in that order, so now let's try it starting on C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and we're back to C. I've just played a C major scale there, which is something we're going to come back to very soon. So the first thing that we need to do is to learn those names of the white notes, because you need to be totally confident with them. Now, to do that, I've created a diagram of the keyboard with the white notes labelled, so you don't kind of have to keep coming back to this video and wheeling back and forth to look at which note is which. If you head to www.billspianopages.com/beginners, you'll find a downloadable PDF, and in there is the diagram. Now, having a diagram is great, but we kind of need to get this knowledge off the page and into your brain, yeah? And the way we're going to do that is by playing a game. Now, as well as helping you learn your notes, remember what we said at the start of this lesson about learning how to number our fingers? That's in the game as well, as we'll see. Okay, it's pretty simple and has 5 kind of levels. What I want you to do is try to master each level before you move on to the next.
If you're an older adult wanting to learn guitar, I have a question for you. What's the difference between a guitar beginner who bought their first guitar years ago but never got past learning their first few chords, versus someone who can play music within a few weeks of starting and experience the thrill of watching their family and friends' jaws drop at just how far they've come in such a short amount of time? It's not hours of daily practice. It's not superhuman discipline. It's also not intelligence, long fingers, or natural-born musical talent. After teaching...
Okay, so level 1 is just to think of a letter between A and G and play 4 notes with that name on the piano keyboard using any finger on your right hand. So you might go for B. B, 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 B. As you hit each note, name it. E, 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 E. If you're not sure where the notes are, remember to refer back to the PDF and the diagram. You've completed this level when you can just think of a note name like, D, and hit it, like that, pretty much without thinking. Try to vary the fingers you're using, rather than just using, just using 1 or 2, and also the order you play the notes in, so you're jumping around rather than just going up or down the piano keyboard. Level 2. You can probably see this coming, but level 2 is just like level 1, except we're going to use our left hand. Again, you should be able to get to a point where you can just think of a note, stick your left hand out and play 4 different notes with that name. Remember to try different fingers and play the notes in different orders, like this. G, 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 G. Or C, 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 C. Level 3 is where we're going to start thinking more carefully. G, G. Or C, 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 C. Level 3 is where we're going to start thinking more G, note 2. Is 1, 1, 2. The only partial exception to that numbers not names rule is the thumb. We sometimes do just call it the thumb, but usually it's all about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Again, there's a diagram in the PDF to help you remember. Now, what I want you to do is exactly what you did in levels 1 and 2, but using the fingers of each hand in order, starting with the right hand thumb. Name the finger that you're using and think of a note, name that too, then play it 4 times with that finger. So, 1, B, 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 B. 2, E, 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 E. Work through all of the fingers of right and left hand and, do it over and over again, because what we're aiming for is the point where you can think of a finger, 4th finger, right hand, think of a note, G, and go G, 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 G. In level 4, we're going to use 1 finger on each hand, and we're back to doing pretty much what we did in levels 1 and 2. Think of a note and hit it. But this time, hit 2 of the notes at once, 1 with each hand. A, 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 A. Again, we're aiming for the point where you don't even have to think about it. C. Okay, nearly there, level 5. Here we're going to be playing runs of notes like this. Start in the right hand and pick a note, let's say C, and play it with 1, your thumb, then play the notes up from it using consecutive white notes until you reach your 5th finger. Then come back down. Sounds complicated, looks simple. Let me show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Repeat it plenty of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Find a different note. G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Each time we're aiming to be smooth and even, yeah? But we don't want to hear loads of I want each note to be the same length and the same sort of loudness if we can. Let's start with E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.
Try to undertake bold action to overthrow the government because the C.
Buffett was doing this before CNBC was even created. Yeah, look at that. Buffett's been doing this.
I'm Bob Wright, the president of NBC, and I'd like to welcome you to the most significant programming effort NBC has ever undertaken outside of the network. The Consumer News and Business Channel, CNBC. We're happy we have your attention, and we promise to work hard to keep it. Launching CNBC has been an elaborate undertaking, but its aim is quite simple: to see the world through your eyes. But before we tell you what we are, let us tell you a little bit about what we're not. We won't be a rip and read news service passing along someone else's impression of the news. And we won't drown you in a mass of meaningless statistics and numbers. In short, we won't tell you anything without telling you what it means to you, how it affects your life and your money. As we said, we'll try to see the world through your eyes. And CNBC will have its eyes open 24 hours a day. In the morning, our World Business Show will bring you the latest from London, Tokyo, and around the globe. During the day, the CNBC Money Wheel will provide full coverage of the business world and the markets from your point of view. We'll tell you what circumstances are affecting the economy and the markets, and how those circumstances affect your life. We'll give constant attention to news affecting you, the consumer, highlighted by twice-hourly reports from our consumer desk during the day. And CNBC's eyes